Morning. I am Professor Colonel Mushahid Thakur. Today, my topic is short and long cases that we set in the final examination. Actually, this is long and short case are discussed in the clinical world in presence of small group teaching, small number of students, and patient in front. Directly, we demonstrate the cases in front of you. But due to adverse situation, as you know, there is due to prevailing adverse situation, we cannot assemble you in the clinical ward. So naturally, we have to discuss these things um, in this online teaching. Actually, during BIBA and clinical examination, as per rule of university, we examine 14 students daily. And during the day of Viva examination, first you will examine two cases, then you will be asked to appear before Viva examination. And we start our Viva from these cases that we set for you in the examination. So this discussion and adequate knowledge about short and long case is very important for you because your Viva would start from these cases. Now we have to know what are the common cases we offer you for examination. We can set so many cases, but mostly we set dacryocystitis. Dacryocystitis, you know, it is of many types, but generally we give you chronic cases. There is chronic dacryocystitis. And second case maybe we can set age-related cataract. And this cataract may be immature, mature, or hypermature. We can ask you to examine a case of pterygium. We can ask you to examine another case of any swelling on the eyelid, mainly upper eyelid. So I am discussing one by one. In case of chronic dacryocystitis, actually what happens there? I think you have got thorough idea about the anatomy and physiology of lacrimal apparatus. Lacrimal apparatus, mainly it has got secretory part. This fluid or tear fluid is secreted by the lacrimal gland and accessory lacrimal glands. It lies on the upper and outer aspect of the orbit. And there is Danish part. Danish part start from puncti, that is punctum, plural, it is puncti. Punctum, canaliculus, common canaliculus, lacrimal sac, and nasolacrimal duct. Just I am discussing in brief the Danish system so that you can understand the matter very well. Then lacrimal sac and then nasolacrimal duct. This nasolacrimal duct open into inferior meatus of the nose. So normally what happens? The fluid is formed by the lacrimal glands and accessory lacrimal glands. It falls downward and pass over the cornea and conjunctiva, the conjunctival sac. Then it is sucked by the lacrimal puncti. Why I say suck? Because there is a pumping system in the lacrimal sac, the lacrimal system. and then it goes to lacrimal sac and ultimately into nose via nasolacrimal duct. These are the normal pathway of tear fluid. But in dactocystitis, what happens? There is inflammation of the lacrimal sac and nasolacrimal duct. And due to chronic inflammation, the duct is initially partially blocked, then there is total block. So tear fluid cannot pass into nose and it is returning back to conjunctival sac via puncti. Actually, what happens, so long tear fluid is constantly flowing or constant flow of tear fluid is very transparent. It is unsterile. But as soon as there is obstruction in the lacrimal duct, there is stagnant of fluid in the lacrimal sac. And you know, any fluid, any water, when it becomes stagnant, it becomes dirty, it becomes turbid, it becomes infected. So is happened over here. And then this dirty fluid will regurgitate or returning back through punctum into conjunctival sac. And patient will complain of constant watering, constant watering, constant watering, and this tear fluid is no longer normal condition. It is infected. It is very dirty. So this is the main pathology of chronic decocititis. Actually, there is obstruction in the nasolacrimal duct. There is obstruction. So in the examination, we set chronic decocititis. Chronic decocititis. We don't set any acute condition or we don't prefer to give any infantile decocititis for you to examine. Always we give chronic decocititis. Then question arises when a patient will be seated in front of you and the examiner will observe you. What is your approach to the patient? First of all, you will go near to the patient, you greet him. You greet him or greet her as per your religion. Don't just, many students I have seen just he will go near to the patient and start examining. It is not the way. First of all, you have to greet, then you have to take consent of the patient that I am going to examine your eyes. Don't be scared of uh, if any problem, please tell me. Then you have to examine very gently, very politely, very softly. Don't hurt the patient and don't jump to examine the patient because patient will be scared of. So first of all, just you will go, you greet him or greet her as per your religion or as you like. Then you take consent or permission from the patient that I am going to examine your eyes. If you face any problem or if you feel any problem, please tell me. Then you examine the patient. And examiner may remain beside you. How you are approaching the patient, how you are examining the patients. Because you are going to examine a live patients. It is not a demo. Okay. Then in case of chronic decocititis, first you will inspect. You will inspect. There is inspection. The whether eyelids are matted or any watering rolling down his or her cheek, then any swelling over the lacrimal sac area, and you observe the eyelashes are matted or not, then you apply pressure over the lacrimal sac area, whether the tear fluid is returning back. This is called regurgitation test. Regurgitate means returning back, to return back. and you have to apply pressure over the sac. There will be regurgitation of mucopurulent discharge. In that cases, suppose some few students examined previously. Suppose you are the seventh students going to examine her. You won't find any regurgitation because it is already emptied by the previous students by applying their pressure. Then how will you confirm it? You have to do probe test, syringing, syringing. That is SPT, sac patency test, sac patency test for confirmation. Then you will do probing. But these are not the SPT and probing. It is not possible during examination. Just when examiner will ask you what else you will do, how will you confirm? Then you will answer. I will do SPT, sac patency test and probe test. Then the Biba, this is then suppose when you will go to sit before the pair of examiner, the examiner will ask you what is your case you have seen, what are the things you have found, how did you examine, and even during your examination, an examiner may go beside you just to observe how you are approaching the patient, how you are examining the patient. Now the next question may arises. This is a case of chronic decrocystitis. You have made diagnosis. If this case remains untreated, what are the possible complications? This is the common question being asked by the examiner. Because as soon as you make diagnosis, you tell the patient that you are suffering from chronic decrocystitis. Unless you do surgery, your watering will not be relieved. Then initially, on hearing the decision of surgery, the patient will be scared of. So you have to convince the patient. Then question arises, if the patient does not undergo surgery for chronic decrocystitis, what are the possible complications? This is the pet question of all examiners. Be careful. Then your answer will be, sir, if the patient does not undergo surgery for chronic decrocystitis, later on what will happen? Patient may develop acute decrocystitis. Acute decrocystitis. Acute decrocystitis, it is an ocular emergency because it is very painful condition. Lacrimal sac area will be swollen, both lid margin will be swollen, and patient will feel severe pain, fever, and so many things. So chronic decrocystitis, if it remains untreated, it will undergo number one, acute condition, acute decrocystitis. Then number two, it may form lacrimal abscess, lacrimal fistula. Then chronic decrocystitis, it provides or it is a great threat for cornea because it causes chronic conjunctivitis and keratitis. There is chronic decrocystitis, if it remains untreated, after a certain time, you will see patient may develop keratitis, hypopyon corneal ulcer. Because chronic decrocystitis, what is there is constant regurgitation of mucopurulent infected materials, and nearby to it there is a very sterile, clear cornea. So cornea at any time it will get ulcerated. There will be hypopyon corneal ulcer. So these are the things you have to convince the patient. In future, if you don't do surgery, you may have severe pain suddenly, or you may have corneal ulcer. Your cornea will be affected. So ultimately, patient uh, may go blind. Corneal ulceration, corneal ulcer may get perforated, and so many things. These are the commonest question If the chronic decholcystitis remains untreated, what complication will occur? Now, question arises: what are the other types of decholcystitis? It is a chronic decholcystitis. Other type, acute decholcystitis, recurrent uh, acute condition on chronic, and there is another type of decholcystitis that you observe or you will see in an infant. In an infant, this is called congenital decholcystitis because our nasolacrimal duct occasionally in newborn baby it remains patent. Sorry, patent means it remains imperforated. That is, the lower end of the nasolacrimal duct may remains covered by a false membrane, and that may lead to watering in an infant. It is called congenital decholcystitis or infantile decholcystitis because nasolacrimal duct does not open; it remains covered by a membrane. So, in congenital decholcystitis, there is happy news for the patient as well as for the surgeon that initially it does not require surgery. Just first 1 year, if we apply hydrostatic massage over the lacrimal sac due to pressure effect, this membrane that covers the end of nasolacrimal duct will get ruptured and the decholcystitis will be relieved. And if the massage over the lacrimal sac does not work, then we do probing. It is done after 1 year of age. After 1 year of age. Now, in case of chronic decholcystitis, if the patient agree with you for surgery, you have to do some investigation. Investigation mainly preoperative to prepare the patient for surgery. Mainly systemic disease, we exclude diabetes mellitus, we exclude hypertension or a bleeding disorder, and local examination. mm, Local examination, you must do SPT, sac patency test, to localize the site of obstruction. Actually, what happens, already I told you, in chronic decholcystitis, the main pathology lies in the nasolacrimal duct because it is blocked and tear fluid does not pass through the nasolacrimal duct and there is stagnant of fluid. In that cases, as this normal pathway is obstructed, so we make a bypass. So the operation is called DCR, decubrocystorhinostomy. Decubrocystorhinostomy. It is of two types mainly: external DCR and internal DCR. Internal DCR means by laser we make a passage through nose, and commonly we do external DCR. That is, we make incision over the lacrimal sac area and we open the lacrimal sac area and medial wall of the lacrimal sac is anastomosed with the nasal mucosa on the lateral wall of the nose by cutting intervening bone. That is, we make a bypass. We make a bypass because normal pathway is obstructed. And this, then what we do by cutting bone, we anastomose or we suture the medial side of lacrimal sac and nasal mucosa on the lateral wall of the nose, anastomosis, and the tear fluid that was stagnant, the circulation is re-established. Yeah, and this stoma or passage is made at the level of fundus because it is at the level of the fundus. If you make passage a bit above, there will be no flow, and below we can do it. So it is done at the level of the medial meatus of the nose. Medial meatus of the nose for normal flow. Normal flow. Actually, external DCR success rate is high. Success rate is high But in many cases, uh, extremely elderly person or many young person, their decubitus is very common among female. Um, they prefer nasal surgery because if you do endoscopy this year, you don't need to make any incision over the sac area because over the sac area occasionally incision area there is formation, there is a scar formation, keloid formation, and it is disfiguring for the patient, disfiguring for the patients. Even the incisional area there is keloid formation, it is standing out, it becomes more prominent in it uglifies the beauty of the patients. Um, in UK or in other country even uh, the patient file a case against the doctor because of having some scar mark over here which has destroyed the beautification of the patient concerned. And that's why nowadays we do endoscopic laser surgery because it is done through the nose and you don't need to make any incision over here. But success rate in external DCR is very high, and nasal root as passage is made over here is very small and it is liable to be blocked. It is liable to be blocked and it may need re-DCR. And in case of external DCR, we have to make incision, we have to, the anatomic structure will be disturbed, there will be more bleeding, it requires more time. So in the examination, we can ask, what is the difference? What are the difference between external DCR and endoscopic DCR? These are the points you have to answer. There is a pros and cons of both. External DCR success rate is high, but uh, instrumentation is very high, costly, more bleeding, anatomic structure will be affected. On the contrary, success rate is high and it may cause cutaneous scar over the incisional area. Endoscopic success rate is low success rate. Success rate is less than external DCR and anatomical structure is less disturbed, but machine or laser therapy should be given. It is very costly. It is very costly and it is done through nasal route. So just you will answer that the external DCR success rate is high, it is beneficial, it requires these things, it causes cutaneous scar. Nasal route rate is very low, but so far as incisional scarma is concerned, there is no chance of scarma formation because we are not making any incision over the lacrimal sac area. So there is any pros and cons of both external DCR and internal DCR. These are the common question we ask about decubitus, and we can make sure that one case of decubitus will be given for you in the examination. Just I can give you surety. Definitely, we set one case. Then second case, just I like to discuss. Second case, maybe age-related cataract. It's about more or less you have to be certain that we set a case for cataract. Age-related cataract, it may be immature, mature, or hypermature. Similarly, now when you are asked to examine a case of age-related cataract, similarly, just you will go near to the patient, you greet him, you take consent, and then you examine. You examine. The examine just you have to see the facial configuration, eyebrow, position of the eyelid, and vision. You have to see vision because the vision will dictate whether it is immature or mature. In case of mature cataract, vision is very less, barely hand movement or counting finger. But in case of immature cataract, vision may be 6 by 16, 6 by 30, 6 by 24 even. So difference between immature and mature cataract. So what is the necessity of differentiating the different types of cataract? Because in immature cataract, it's very easy to do phaco in case of immature cataract. Immature cataract, and then generally we ask in case of cataract that you will answer that sir age related immature cataract or age related mature cataract. The common question we ask, um, can you tell me whether patient will see after surgery or not? That is, how will you predict that patient will see or not after surgery? Because as soon as you will declare to the patient that you need surgery, you need intraocular lens, then patient or his or her attendant will try to know from you the surety after surgery. One thing's um, no operation can be granted, no surety can be given. But inshallah, by the grace of Almighty, by examining many things, you can foretell, you can predict that yes, if you do surgery, patient will be able to see. Then you can say what that patient will see by examining. Without examination, you can't say anything. That is, you have to examine or you have to assess the retinal function. It is called retinal function test. It is called RFT. RFT, retinal function test. Already I discussed in the classes. Just in the examination, we would ask, patient will see after surgery. Say, yes, sir. I have done these things. I have done retinal function test, and all are positive. All are in favor of this patient. I think patient will see. What are those? First of all, uh, what PLPR, projection of rays and perception of light. You should remember, whatever the grade of cataract, whether mature, hypermature, or immature cataract, if the patient does not perceive the light, it is presumed that patient will not be able to see after surgery. So, uh, examination with a simple torch, it will give a massive important information to you. So we should not ignore examining the patient with a torchlight, because whatever the grade of cataract, it does not matter. If the patient cannot perceive even light, you can understand patient will not see after surgery. This is the simple things. Whatever the grade of cataract, patient will perceive some light. If the patient has mature cataract or hypermature cataract, if you focus light, patient can perceive light. If the patient cannot perceive light, you must assume that something wrong behind the uh, lens. There might have some pathology in the retina. There might have some pathology in the optic nerve. So this is very important. You must remember. Whatever the grade of cataract, it does not matter. If the patient can perceive light, it is presumed after surgery, patient will be able to see. If the patient cannot perceive light, even the patient has immature cataract or mature cataract, it means patient will not see after surgery. So will, if the patient tries to know from you, the doctor, can I see after surgery? You cannot say uh, straight that yes, you can see or you will not see. First of all, you have to examine. Then you will tell the patient. If you, many times there is a misunderstanding among the patient and their attendants with the doctors because we don't disclose the matter. You have to talk to the patient very clearly that you have got cataract, you need surgery, but I have examined, I have seen, after examination, I have seen that behind the lens, some important apparatus are there, retina, optic nerve, there is some problem. If the patient cannot perceive light, if the patient can perceive light, then you can say Yes, I hope the patient will be able to see. If the patient cannot perceive light, then you will declare the patient something wrong behind the lens. So I think after surgery, patient may not see. You have to disclose everything before surgery. Then after surgery, when patient will have some problem, they will not blame you. They will not blame you. Don't hide anything. Just you talk to the patients and their attendants directly. If the patient leave you, if he goes anywhere, no problem. Let him go. Don't invite any unnecessary problem with the patients. If you don't disclose it, and if there is any problem after surgery, they will make chaos with you. Why should I pick this quarrel with the people? Okay, then you must tell that, sir, after, I will do some retinal function test. Then you will declare the patient whether patient will be able to see or not. What are those retinal function tests? Number one, with the torch, you are you should focus light. There is perception of light and projection of rays. Then 2 point discriminations. Then pupil reaction. Pupil reaction is important. Then color vision. Already I discussed in the um, just one. I want to give you one tips. If you sit before the examiner and if the question started from cataract, always try to keep in your mind the patient will ask, the examiner will ask you about the retinal function test. There is visual potential, or examiner may ask you directly what are the retinal function test or visual potential, or patient will ask you indirectly after surgery, will the patient be able to see? Sir, I have to do some test, retinal function test. If these functions, retinal function test result go in favor of the patients, then or against the patient. If the patient cannot perceive light, even the patient will not be able to see after surgery. If the patient can perceive, if the patient has mature cataract, hypermature cataract, it does not matter. If the instrument or the apparatus behind the intraocular lens is all right, patient will perceive light despite having hypermature or mature cataract. Then after evaluation, you have to do some investigation. Don't prescribe unnecessary investigation. It is overburdening to the patients. Just before doing cataract surgery, we do some systemic examination. You have to exclude diabetes mellitus. You have to exclude hypertension, or any chronic COPD, or any septic focus elsewhere in the body, like tooth infection, urinary tract infection, um, any joint pain, because uh, if the patient has joint pain or arthritis, postoperatively, patient might have severe uveitis. Then local examination, you have to measure intraocular pressure, you have to assess the vision, you have to measure intraocular pressure, you have to examine the patient by slit lamp. By slit lamp instrument, you have seen in the outdoor, there is a big instrument. It is very essential to assess the uh, condition of the cornea, anterior chamber, any sign of uveitis, and by this instrument we can assess the types of cataract, types of cataract, because sorry, there are various types of cataract. Then the examiner will ask him, how will you manage the case? One important question I like to ask, and I used to ask, in case of immature cataract, you will see patient can see distant things, 6 by 12, 6 by 24. So a bit there is some a bit blurring, and near vision is all right. Will you do surgery? Or if the patient is reluctant, or if the patient is afraid of any surgery, as soon as you declare that you need surgery, the patient and their attendants is not well prepared psychologically, as well as the question of financial matter. They will they will want to take certain period of time. The patient will ask you, sir, right time, right now I can't do any surgery, so please give me some medicine or some other device so that I can carry out my daily activities. Then the question arises, what is the non-surgical treatment of cataract? In case of immature cataract, initially you can prescribe spectacle. This is the answer, spectacle. Then recently, according to Oxford Textbook of Ophthalmology, it has been seen if you ask the patient to take antioxidant, it retard or it prevents some form of cataract formation. So number one, spectacle prescription. Just is the breathing time. Breathing time. Just you will advise the patient for surgery. Patient will take certain period of time. That I will do it after 6 months. I will do it after 4 months. So for this interim period, what measure you will take? This is the non-surgical treatment of cataract. Then I will give spectacle, then antioxidant, because recently it has been seen that administration of antioxidant oral route, it prevents some sort of cataract. Then you can prescribe some local anti-cataractus drug. Trade name is Vitafol or Facovit. You can it retards, it prevents formation of, or at least it delays the progression of cataract. So patient will get certain period of time for their preparation, for their psychological preparation, for their financial preparation, or because as soon as you declare for surgery, patient might have some problem. So you have to give some time. Some period should be um, patient should prepare himself or herself for surgery. Then you come to the point. If the cataract patient having cataract does not undergo surgery at all, what will happen? Yes, complication may arise. In case of there is, it is called lens-induced glaucoma. You must remember it, and I discussed in the class. Lens-induced glaucoma may occur if the patient does not undergo surgery. Lens-induced glaucoma, it is of mainly two types. There are several types of lens-induced glaucoma. It is also called phacogenic glaucoma. But for you, um, uh, two important uh, lens-induced glaucomas are very important. Number one, phacomorphic glaucoma and phacolytic glaucoma. And the differentiation between phacolytic and phacomorphic glaucoma I discussed in the class. And just you see your note, you will find it. I'm not going to discuss right now. Then treatment of cataract when patient is visually handicapped, cannot carry out the as usual work, patient must have undergone cataract surgery. The choice of surgery is phaco surgery. Phaco emulsification with posterior chamber intraocular lens. We can do occasionally SICS, small incision cataract surgery. And these are the things. Other postoperative complication, postoperative care, everything we discussed in the class. I am not going to repeat it. Then come to the another short case. Another short case. He may be asked to examine a patient having a small swelling over the eyelid. A patient may be set for you, and on examination you will find there is a small nodule or small swelling over the upper eyelid. In that cases, you have to inspect the size of the nodule, size, shape, whether it is on the lid margin or away from lid margin. Then you will palpate to assess its consistency, whether it is firm or hard, then cystic, and you have to assess the skin is free or fixed, and if it is away from lid margin, whether it is tender or non-tender, because all the findings you will encounter in case of chalazion. Chalazion, because chalazion, a patient will present with chalazion, a swelling over the eyelid, mostly over the upper eyelid. The question may arise of why collagen is more common in the upper eyelid, because in the upper eyelid there is maximum number of meibomian gland. Lower eyelid it is less number, so there is less chance. So in case of collagen, on examination you will see the area is elevated. There is a small swelling and it is almost round and away from lid margin. So then you palpate. On palpation, you can assess patient will feel pain or not. It is tender or non-tender. Skin is free or mobile. Is consistency. Occasionally, this swelling surface is very rough, and there is um, it is not there is no smoothness over the surface. In that cases, you have to think otherwise. It may be a meibomian gland carcinoma in the early stage, or maybe a adenoma. So these are all will come as differential diagnosis of chalazion. But on chalazion, skin is free, non-tender, smooth, away from lid margin. Then the examiner will ask you what is the difference between stye and chalazion. Stye it is um, painful condition around the eyelash and on the lid margin. Skin is fixed, painful. Collagen, the what is the fate of collagen? Fate of collagen. That is, a collagen, if it remains untreated, what will be the consequence? Occasionally, it will disappear spontaneously. It will disappear on its own. Actually, what happens in collagen? You know that in the upper eyelid there is vertically oriented meibomian gland. This meibomian gland secretion, when there is retained secretion of meibomian gland due to obstruction, and the gland and duct become dilated, and it will appear as swelling. So initially, in case of if this collagen is very small, it will disappear on its own spontaneously. It will get all right. Number one. Number two, because collagen it may burst. It may burst. The collagen, it is a chronic granulomatous condition. Occasionally, it may be infected. It is called internal cordiolum. When it is infected, it becomes painful, acute condition. Occasionally, it may be calcified, or very rarely, it may turn to malignant condition. So these are the fate. And what is the problem with the patient having collagen? Because there is a big mass over the eyelid, so there is a sense of um, grittiness, because it is applying pressure over the cornea. There is a sense of heaviness, cosmetic disfigurement. On the other hand, the collagen will press over the cornea, and it will induce astigmatism, and patient will complain blurring of vision. Blurring of vision. Another things, the collagen, due to its weight, the eyelid may fall downward, so it may cause ptosis. It may cause ptosis. It is called mechanical ptosis. Mechanical ptosis. In case of collagen, what is the treatment? If the collagen is very small, the answer will be like this. If the collagen is very small, just we apply message over there, we give antihistamine, and it will subside on its own. If the collagen is large one, medium size, we can give intralesional local steroid. Because if you inject a long-acting steroid inside the collagen mass, because it is a granulomatous inflammatory condition, not infective condition, so it will disappear. Steroid may be helpful. But if the collagen is very big and it does not respond to steroid treatment, or if it does not regress on its own, then we have to make surgery. Just we apply collagen clamp, we invert eyelid and make incision vertically. Question arises, why we make incision vertically? Because if you make incision horizontally, you will cut more number of duct and leading to dryness. So you have to make incision vertically? This is the commonest question. These are the management of collagen. Then another short case, you may be asked to examine pterygium. In the pterygium, just you will examine the patient. You will say, sir, there is an wing-shaped fold of conjunctiva is seen uh, is seen encroaching upon the margin of the cornea. This is the pterygium. In pterygium also, it causes some bothersome problem to the patients like irritation, recurrent redness, and it also uglify the beauty of the patients or cosmetic disfigurement. And if the pterygium is progressive, it will go to the center of the cornea and it causes severe impairment of visions. So it has to be excised. So pterygium case may be set for you in the examination and differential diagnosis is pseudopterygium. In case of conjunctivitis or any other inflammatory condition, you will see that the conjunctiva becomes adherent with the margin of the cornea and it simulates or it mimics pterygium. So how will you differentiate? There are a lot of points to differentiate pterygium or pseudopterygium, but all are unimportant. Only one answer should be there. That, sir, if I insert a probe under the pterygium, it does not pass. In case of pseudopterygium, if you insert a probe under the mass, it will pass easily. It is called pseudopterygium. Pseudopterygium, due to inflammation, the conjunctiva, bulbar conjunctiva will become adherent with the margin of the cornea. And under the pterygial mass, that simulates pterygium. Simulating pterygium mass, if you pass a probe, it will pass easily. In case of pterygium, it does not pass. Only one answer is enough. But there are some other points. These are all unimportant. Some will say pterygium is common in elderly person. Pterygium is practically we have seen pterygium is very common in young person. And pseudopterygium cause if there is any chronic inflammation or acute inflammation of the conjunctiva, and mostly you will see following lime burn or following chemical injury. Following chemical injury, you will see the some portion of conjunctiva becomes adherence with the corneal margin. It is called pseudopterygium. And pseudopterygium, it may occur in the anywhere, in any direction of the cornea. But in case of pterygium, it is almost always in horizontal fashion. This is another important point. First important point, in case of pterygium, a proof cannot pass easily. And in case of pseudopterygium, it can pass. Pseudopterygium, it is or occurs in any meridian, in any meridian. But in case of pterygium, it always in the horizontal vision because our palpebral aperture is exposed to environmental, and it is presumed that the ultraviolet ray or radiation may be incriminated for the formation of pterygium. Okay, these are all about short and long case during examination we set for you, and but be sure that we would likely to set for you chronic decussatis, cataract, chalazion, and pterygium. These are mostly highly important for you. Okay, this is enough today. Actually, blog posting it is designed for teaching in the clinical world. We because this is an adverse situation, we cannot ask you to assemble in the clinical world. Actually, in the world in front of the patients, we can demonstrate well properly. However, I think my discussion today will be helpful for you. Wish you good luck.